Hello YouTube, welcome to this version Stygian Onslaught Theory Craft session number 1, which is going to feature the Aeonblight Drake. And so let's take a look. First of all, we know that he has multiple phases and in which he has different resistances, and he will always have the resistance of the element which dealt the most damage to it from the previous phase. So if you deal the most pyro damage in the first phase, for example, the second phase, then he will have increased pyro resistance, and so on and so forth. And this will always reset, and if you don't change the element fast enough, he will switch to airborne state, where you have to attack his weaknesses with the bow preferably, although I think Farina can do it, Chevrus can probably also do it, and Mika might also be able to do it. But let's say you have to bring bow character in case you don't do that. So yeah, then we're going to be taking a look at which teams can beat it in Dire and Fearless. So first of all, let's look at the 4 teams that I think are the most likely to be able to clear Dire. But of course, if you have high constellations, this will change. I assume these at like C0 R1. And so first team is going to be Malvika Overloaded with Malvika and Chevrus, Jansan and Vrisa. So idea is that you have Overloaded as your damage, either from Malvika or from Vrisa. So first phase you're going to deal, for example, pyro damage with Malvika. In second phase you're going to be dealing the damage with Vrisa alone. Probably you want to be dealing pyro damage first, because I think that the Malvika damage is going to be a bit lower than the Vrisa damage. The idea is that in the first phase you are going to deal damage with both elements, but if you deal more pyro damage, it gains the pyro resistance, and the second phase you have to do electro damage. The third phase you have to do pyro damage, and the fourth phase you're going to do electro damage once again. And then you can see that you have to deal more electro damage than pyro damage, which is beneficial if your electro damage is stronger, because I think Vrisa with those supports is stronger than Malvika, although Malvika is pretty cracked. So next team I'm going to recommend is not Vrisa, is Malvika and Molani with Zilone and Sucrose. I think this is like a very nice idea, because you have either Vape, so you apply Hydro on Molani, then, or like you have Pyro, for example, swirl it with Sucrose, then you apply enough Hydro with Molani, do your combo, your setup. I don't think you have to swirl it for the VV, honestly. Maybe you just want to go Instructors, just for simplicity. But let's say you do manage to swirl it, and then you have Hydro on your enemy, and then Malvika does a big damage, and boom, you dealt a lot of pyro damage, and deal the rest of your rotation like that. Then, after he gains the pyro resistance, we're going to swap to Malvika off field, so Malvika will apply constant pyro, Sucrose will swirl it, Zelonin will do her thing, and then Molani is going to vape all her hits. So you either vape with Molani, which is very nice, because that's like completely normal team for her, or with Malvika, which is also fine, because you can do vape your big hit, especially with all the EM Sucrose gives you, with the EM you already have on Malvika. Then your big hit will do a lot of damage, and then it's like a normal rotation again. And yeah, that's the idea. Next going to be Skirk Double Hydro. This will require you to on-field Yelan after time, but we'll get to this later. So first of all, we're going to deal a lot of damage with Skirk, okay? The idea being that, well, first of all, this Skirk team just works very well, because you have 3 nice supports for her. But once he has the cryo resistance, you can actually deal a lot of hydro damage. So Farina alone contributes to around 20-30k DPS, and you need around 120k DPS, which is a lot. But keep in mind your Skirk will do more DPS than that. So as long as your cry phase is done fast enough, you are going to be like, it's fine if you don't do 120k DPS. For example, you can do like 90k DPS on the Hydro team if you do it on time, while the crowd team only like deals 200k DPS. I don't know, something like that. So Yelan Once he has the cryo resistance, it's better if you on-field your Yelan. Because if you on-field your Yelan, she gets her own buff, her own 0 to 50% buff from her burst. So this way her damage is going to increase by a lot, especially with Farina's skill. So Escoffier will still provide the heals, so you max out your Panther buff, and Yelan will also do a lot of damage, so that's fine. Altogether, on all, it's really good. So Yelan's damage is good, and it will be around 60k, so you will get, like, with decent investment, you get 90k DPS. And like I said, this is doable, and if you have like R1 on both, you should get over 100k DPS, honestly. And especially if you have, for example, C1 Yelan, which is very manageable, you get more than that. You get a lot more because you also have no energy recharge issues, so you can expect about 105 to 110k on the Yelan side. Meanwhile, Skulk's team will do a lot better, especially with constellations and weapons. So yeah, and some people actually have Yelan C6, and for them this is going to be a breeze with this team. Next on is Skulk plus Nivlet, so instead of Yelan, we take Nivlet. I think this is more reasonable. Your Yelan will do less damage, not Yelan, your Skulk, because Nivlet doesn't have the supportive capabilities, but the Nivlet is just doing a lot of damage by himself. And if you are like me and have a very nice, strong invested Nivlet with his Constellation 1 at least, your Nivlet will show his power, for sure. This really good team. Next, those teams are for Dire. I don't know about the other teams because the DPS requirements, as I said, is like 120k DPS. And for example, this team is Ryo Freeze, and it will perform very similarly to Skulk, but Ryo himself deals less damage than Skulk. So if your Skulk C0 R1 team can clear it, Ryo might need a little bit more than C0 R1. The concept is the same, and for Fearless, you only need like 60k DPS, 50k DPS-ish, so that's very reasonable to achieve with this team. Ryo will do a lot of damage for that. Next is going to be Al Double Hydro. This can be Farina, but for simplicity I chose Yelan Xingqiu because this is Fearless. As I said, Yelan alone can deal about 60k DPS with Farina and heal. In this team you don't have that, but you still have a lot of Hydro damage still with Zelonin and Yelan and Xingqiu together. So if you on-field them, you should get around 50k DPS very easily, and Alikino herself will have around 100k DPS easily with this team. So next up is going to be Chlorine. Chlorine Double Hydro, because those are the Double Hydro variants, which include Farina, Yelan, Jean. You don't have to play Jean, you can play Zelonin, you can play Shanyun. The idea is just a resistance shredder plus a healer, and Jean does that. You can also use Sayu, honestly, but this team is great because you have great electro damage and you have great hydro damage. These two already work in Dire, so they will definitely work in Fearless as well. But I wrote an asterisk because I really want to use your electro charge teams versus the Fatui guy, because he really wants to have electro charge on his side. And this team, if this clears the Drake, it should clear the Fatui guy, and if I was you, I would use electro charge to clear the Fatui guy, because the Drake is a bit more flexible. Similar to Chlorine team, you can use Ryan instead. Yeah, that's also it. You can also use, for example, here Shanyun and use Verisa and Yansan instead of one of them, and this should also do the job. Next is Hyperbloom team. Hyperbloom team, the idea is that you first of all have all the Hyperbloom damage and Dendro damage, but also Yelan Xingqiu are just double Hydro Core, as you saw with the Arakino team, that just passed the DPS check. And what's really great about Yelan teams is that she can shoot down the Drake just in case if anything bad happens. At very last we have Bloom teams, which include Nivlet, Nilu, Nahida, and I use Baiju here because the Dendro damage will come mostly because of the Bloom and the Hydro damage will come from Nivlet. but you don't have to use Baiju, especially now that Lauma is out. You should use Lauma if you have it instead. But the Hyper Bloom and the Bloom teams you should use on the Crab, because the Crab really wants to have Bloom, Hyper Bloom, or I don't think Burgeon is optimal because you don't want to use Pyro because it triggers something and you get a lot of damage. But you really want to use them on the Crab because Nilu is very limited. You only have like one Bloom team with Nilu. And Nahida and Lauma are the only two really feasible Dendro characters. You don't really want to use them on the Drake. It's okay, I guess, if you have Nahida for this half in this specific team, since you can use Lauma with Aino, Kuki, Raiden, or Xingqiu, whatever, something like that, or Yelan. And for the last boss, you can still use Flints with Inefa, who should clear the last boss easily. Right? So this is the reminder. The guide is on Tacta as always. Next is going to be Wriothesley Melt, similar to the Molani one, but here we use Wriothesley instead of Molani, because I think in Melt Wriothesley damage will be less than Molani's vape damage, but still his damage is very strong. He might be able to keep up with Dire if you have very invested one, but maybe not with this exact variation. But Bennett will benefit both of them. Mavuika will benefit greatly from the Melt, because Melt has an at least 2 times multiplier. With Sucrose, of course, buffing EM, shredding resistance, and Wriothesley also just doing his thing, because with Off-Field Mavuika, Sucrose and Bennett you get enough Pyro, so Wriothesley can melt his big hits. Next going to be Arlecchino Melt instead. And the idea of this team is that you have, of course, Arlecchino, Citlali, Bennett, which alone can easily take down one phase. But then you have to deal damage with the other phase, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, you can use Navia. The great thing about Navia is that Navia can deal a lot of damage, so it's not unrealistic that she deals like 300k damage with one hit. Then she's picks up all the crystallizers and deals like 200 damage again. And so this way, especially in Fearless, where each phase is like around 1.6 million HP, or wait, let me see again, yeah, 1.5 million HP, you have to deal like 4 or 5 hits of Navia's big attack, which work in the time frame, because you will deal a lot of damage with Arlecchino. I think with Arlecchino alone you will have maybe like 200k damage right off the bat. Like bam bam bam, done. Especially with Celali. So next team is Chaska. The reason I don't know if Chaska is ready for die yet, because it's very RNG heavy. So sometimes you will always do big pyro damages and not hydro damages. And this will just be, it won't be beneficial for your regular clears, and since you will rely a lot on RNG, I think that Chaska is usually more for Fearless, except you have a very nice, strong invested Chaska like C2 with a signature, then she will definitely have a chance at the Drake. But we will see in a week. So for this team I use this Priya Chevrus variant with Chevrus C6 and Bennett, so you will have Pyro buff, another Pyro buff because she's C6, and Farina, who will not only buff common damage, she will also do a lot of hydro damage. So this will cover both elements, and of course you have Anemo, but yeah, that's not that crazy. But you will have either forward vape or reverse vape, so either Pyro on Hydro or Hydro on Pyro. So big damage. Now it's going to be double DPS with Raiden. I was thinking about maybe replacing Bend with Fischl for more electro damage, but I think for Fearless this is fine. Dealing 1.3 million damage with Raiden in a whole rotation might sound very iffy. It's not that easy, but you have time to get in 2 rotations. And this is like 2 big hits, which are 300k damage each. So that's like, you only have to do like 900 or 800k damage left. And this is very possible if you have like C1, C2, or maybe even C3 Ryan is definitely easily doable. But with CC Ryan it might get a bit hard, but it should be possible. Like, I think it's possible, and we'll see. This is like the team that I'm going to use for my not free to play run, but well, I am free to play, but I think this is the team that I'm going to use for my general guide. Although I'm also going to be using Skirk with Novelette for Dire. I will try to beat Dire this onslaught, but it's going to be very hard for free to play. Next team I have Child International. Why Child International? Because you can deal a lot of hydro damage and a lot of pyro damage, and I think in this team is like, it's great. I think honestly this team might be it, especially because you can get another child constellation for free. So I don't know how helpful this is, but it's better than nothing, right? And Charming Bennett once again will do a lot of pyro damage. You will easily do like 300k hits, that's a bit much, but like 120k vapes on Shangling, so that's like 600k pyro damage of one rotation, and you get like more than that, and you get like 2 rotations on Shangling in the time frame, so you will get enough pyro damage. And hydro damage is also doable because you will also deal a lot of hydro damage on Child. And you can set up, first of all you get the double VV buff, like double swirl, but you can also make sure that Child hits most of his hydro damage. It's also, although you might want to replace Child with Ayato, because then Ayato will do a lot of hydro damage as well. Well, it's fine. I think this is doable, but this is very hard. So next is going to be Monopyro with Chiori. This is only for like Fearless, and even then this is going to be very tight. Chiori will deal a lot of damage. Zelonin is a good support. Alikino will do her side easily, but then there's the question if Chiori can do it. Otherwise, like, you can replace Chiori of course with Navia, but I really like to use Chiori here. Simply because she is off field, so even though she has like 200% resistance shred in one phase, she will still do like 30k damage altogether, which is not much. It's like 1 extra Alkino hit, but it's a bit, like, it's that little bit extra damage that that might help overall. And her burst will also deal decent amount of damage. Maybe this ain't enough, I don't know yet, but if you have like good high constellations Chiori, this will definitely be enough. And maybe you want to on-field Zelonin, so if you have those 2 characters on constellations, this will most probably work. So second last we have Alekino, Aggravate, Burn or Overloaded. Like, this team is very messy because you will trigger a lot of reactions, but Emily will do a lot of Dendro damage, Fishu will do a lot of electro damage because she can react with Aggravate or with Overloaded, and Alekino will do a lot of power damage by herself. So Alekino I think is a really good character this onslaught, like in the 6.0 onslaught. And next we have Raiden, Rational with Yelan, not Xingqiu, because here you have the benefit that you either have pyro damage, I'd say, like mostly pyro damage and hydro damage, and you have a lot of those electro extra damage. So the boss will always get resistance to either pyro or hydro. I wouldn't think electro, except your electro is very strong, but then you can play the Overload variant. You don't have to play Alekino, but like, this should be enough if you place Yelan with Chevrus. Maybe it will be enough, I don't know, but if your Rhine is really strong, then maybe it gets the electro resistance, but otherwise it doesn't, and that way your Rhine will still do like 600k damage in the rotation, and Yelan will do the rest easily, or those 2 will do the rest easily. So this is very reasonable of a team, I'd say. And that concludes for this video. If you have any other ideas for other teams, or have questions or doubts if a team doesn't work, comment down below. Maybe drop a like if you liked it, and remember to subscribe to not miss out on the next theory craft session, which is probably going to feature the crab, or maybe there's another different idea that I'm going to try out. So nice, bye.